Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you, coming at you with another Orcust build. So I've covered Fiendsmith Orcust, I've covered Mitsurugi Orcust, but today I've decided to combine those two engines into one Orcust build. We're playing both Fiendsmith and Mitsurugi in the same build. This is my first time trying it, and I gotta say, I was pretty satisfied with the results here. I was a little worried about how I'd be able to fit it into one deck, but I decided to try it out, and I got it all on 42 cards. I'll show off the list at the end here. First, we have a mirror match, and you'll notice right off the bat that I kind of just let my opponent resolve a Fooldos without chaining the Ash Blossom in my hand. Yeah, I don't have any excuses here. It was just a misclick on my part. I meant to, click yes, and I clicked no by mistake. So we're going to have to let their Fooldos resolve, but I think that we can still demonstrate here just how you can play under a Foolos, so it's a bit of a blessing in disguise. I'm going to use Foolish Burial to send Symbol Skeleton and actually revive my Heart Pourer from the graveyard. Looks really weird, but what I'm going to do is pivot into King of the Feral Imps, because I know I can summon a pretty decent Mitsurugi board while giving them very minimal draws off of Foolos. Whereas if I want to do Orcust or Fiendsmith plays, then I would have to commit a lot more special summons. So this is one of many reasons why I really like combining all three of these engines into one deck, is they can pivot between one another very easily. Alright, so we can do both Kusanagi and Aramas's effect here. Aramas is going to grab us a Habakiri from the deck, and then we can use Kusanagi to add back the Mitsurugi ritual, which we're going to go ahead and activate, tributing off the Habakiri and then summoning Murakumo from our deck. So I gave my opponent a total of 2 draws here in order to establish a Murakumo on board with the Habakiri, King of Feral Imp, Saji, and then a Prayers as well. They're going to throw out a Maxi here. But I'm going to chain the Murakumo and force them to discard in order to use it. Not only am I going to force them to discard in order to use it, but I'm not even going to revive my Habakiri, so I won't even give them the draw. So at the end of it all, they're still on 5 cards. They actually did not net gain any advantage whatsoever, and I was still able to end on a Murakumo with the prayer setup, as well as a couple of extra bodies to help me go through, their turn, as well as the hand traps in my hand. Now, again, if I just been paying a little bit more attention, I could just Ash Blossom and not dealt with the Foolos anyway, but so cool to be able to show you all, what a board playing through Foolos might look like with this deck. So I said it was a mirror match. I forgot that they were actually a bit of a pile deck here. They are playing Orcust, but also a Snake Eye engine as well with Millennium and Fiendsmith cards. So I'm going to Ash Blossom the Sengenjin here. They're going to go normal summon Poplar. I'm going to chain the Murakumo, force them to discard a card if they want to continue playing here. They're going to discard Droll and Lockbird. That's another thing. Every time I was searching with the Mitsurugi engine, they kept getting past priority, so I knew they had a Droll and Lockbird, but I also knew they wouldn't fire. Well, 2 things that I was completely fine with this Droll. 2 reasons. 1, I knew they weren't going to use Droll because they were Foolos drawing, and that would cut them off from their own draws. 2, even if they did use Droll and Lockbird, I could then have just pivoted back into Orcust engine and done full combo while giving them doing no searches, and of course they wouldn't be getting any draws. Alright, so they're going to drop a surprise Hallowed Azamina from hand to summon Ilia Sylvia, establishing a negate on the board. That is slightly annoying, but it's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. They're going to go into Linkuriboh and then summon Snake Eyes Doomed Dragon, targeting Murakumo. We're going to chain Prayers, tributing the Murakumo, and then activate both effects here. So we can add another Habakiri, and then we can summon back Kusanagi. Now I can go Chainlink 1 Murakumo, Chainlink 2 Kusanagi. That way if they wanted to Ilia Sylvia, they would have to negate my Kusanagi effect. Granted, they can just wait for Murakumo to hit the board and negate the, on-summon effect, which they are going to do. But by chain blocking here, I am allowing myself to summon the Murakumo. Obviously, if they just straight up negated Murakumo's effect, I wouldn't get to resummon it or search a card. Yeah, even though they negated my board wipe, all they have left is Linkuriboh plus Snake Eyes Doom Dragon, so there's really not much they can do with that. Sure, they can grab Snake Eye Ash off the OSS, but they can't normal summon it, and also Poplar is still in the deck. Hallowed Azamina, same deal. They don't have a Sinful Spoils card, so they can't do much with that. Their last card is going to be Fiendsmith's Tract. They're going to go for Lurie here, and then they're going to special summon the Fabled Lurie. You'll note that I have a live Nibiru in my hand, and I'm gonna hold on to it for just a second here. My plan was to wait for them to summon out Sequence, but they're actually gonna summon Nightmare Goblin instead, which is even better for me, because now when they go to normal summon Snake Eye Ash, they're gonna add Jet Synchron, but at this point now I can Nibiru. Because I know for certain they don't have any more follow-up plays, right? Wedge Temple does nothing by itself on board, Jet Synchron does nothing by itself in hand, and looking at their graveyard, none of these graveyard cards have the ability to extend, you know, their plays from the graveyard. So I know I'm good to Nibiru and outright end their turn here. Plus a bonus search off of Saji. At this point, they're clicking yellow buttons, adding back Babel, summoning back Jet Synchron. I thought maybe they were going to Synchro Summon for Snake Eye's Vengeance Dragon for a second, 1 + 11 being 12. They could have done that and pushed back my Nibiru and attacked me for 3k, but of course I was still at full life points, and that's the only thing they were able to do, if they even had that in the extra deck, which they didn't. So, alright, that is going to be our first duel. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next one here. Alright, next duel is going to be up against Maliss. Now, at the time that this video goes out, I believe the ban list will have already taken effect. Just know that at the time that I recorded this, it was before the ban list. So, we are going to see a red ransom from them. So, this is like versing Maliss hard mode. Alright, we're going to lead with Engraver here. I don't like opening Engraver plus Lacrima, but I'll still summon Lacrima from my hand off Requiem. I still think that's worth it. Like, it's not ideal, but summoning Engraver from deck just to feel like I'm getting more advantage is just not an optimal play. Of course, the other great thing about playing Fiendsmith or Mitsurugi inherently, not even just together, but like even independently, is that if you lead with either engine, your opponent will never know exactly what deck you're playing, right? Because Fiendsmith could be Fiendsmith Mitsurugi, Fiendsmith Orcust, there's even still some Fiendsmith Ryzeal builds out there, Fiendsmith Control could also be a thing. It's why you have to respect sequence, like my opponent's negating it with Dominus Impulse here. It's really easy to have like one hand trap and then go into a Fiendsmith line and be like, oh, but I'll just wait for the next thing. But it's like, yeah, but if you do that, you'll still have to deal with Caesar or Desiree or, you know, who knows what else, so. Now, having this simple skeleton in hand is kind of not ideal, because I would like to be able to set it up for the follow-up turn, but you'll see how we work around that here later. But same with Mitsurugi, you know, if you lead with Mitsurugi stuff, for all your opponent knows, you could be playing pure Mitsurugi, or the Fiendsmith variant, or Ryzeal Mitsurugi, or, again, you could be on Orcust like we are. Alright, so at this point, we're just setting up basic Orcust stuff. Yep, Galatea put back the Wonder Wand into the deck. Ding, attaching the Orcust Nightmare to it as a material. You do want to do it in that order. I know in an older video I implied, or even outright said, I think, that it didn't really matter what, you know, which cards you put back, but it actually really does. You really want Wonder Wand to be in the deck, and then Orcust Nightmare to be in the graveyard. That's the best way to keep your engine, you know, cycling. So yeah, I didn't get to end on IP here because we didn't get to summon a token to their field, so I didn't have anything to steal. Okay, so they're going to go set a card, normal summon Chessy Cat. So of course I know this is going to be one of the trap cards here. I'm guessing, I was guessing it was probably MTP, but it could be TB11. But either way, I don't want this Chessy Cat to get a chance to activate its effect, so we're going to set it up like this, right? We're going to go Heart Pour to summon a Girsu, and then in the same link as Girsu, we're going to use Enlil Girsu to try to take their monster. Now, they're going to chain TB11, banishing their Chessy Cat, which looks like they're outright dodging me here, but this is actually going to be completely fine. Also, we still need to set up our Symbol Skeleton to summon back Ding, and we're going to do that all in one chain link here. Watch this. TB11 summons White Rabbit. Girsu adds back Heart Pour, but puts back Symbol Skeleton, takes White Rabbit, and then Girsu sends the Symbol Skeleton that we just put back. Also, because I took their White Rabbit, they didn't get a chance to activate the on-summon effect to set a Maliss trap card from their deck. They're going to revive Chessy Cat off her effect, but now we can just go Symbol Skeleton, summon Ding, Ding F, send a Chessy Cat, and we're keeping them off their plays. They're going to go Gold Sarcophagus at this point to summon out the Dormouse. Dormouse effect. You'll notice I'm not using my Crescendo yet. I'm being very patient because I know Dormouse by itself isn't going to be enough here. I'm waiting for whatever the follow-up is. And here is the backup Adagnister. So at this point, I'm going to use the Orcust Crescendo. Alright, that's going to be the last of our disruptions, but our opponent only has one more card in hand, and it's Marchair. And of course, it is Maliss Marchair. Had to be the last card in their hand. Ugh, that felt so bad when I saw it. I was like, man, I was so sure backup Adagnister was going to be the last extender. They actually just had everything here. So it's a little bit rough, because like I said, we're out of actual like disruptive plays we can make. I could still summon back like Galatea Eye from my graveyard, but there's obviously not too much of a reason to do that right now, right? So, yep, there's the Red Ransom. Again, this is a pre-ban list build, so playing against Maliss on hard mode here. They're going to set GWC and then link Red Ransom plus White Rabbit into the access code talker. Which I was thinking to myself, like, yeah, they don't really have many ways to extend because they thankfully have already summoned, you know, Chessy Cat and the White Rabbit, so they've already used Marchair's summon effect. So they can go access code plus Red Ransom plus GWC here, but that's not going to be lethal. Also, they already banished Red Ransom, so banishing it for GWC doesn't do a lot here. They get to draw 2 off Chessy Cat, but other than popping my Ding and battling over Enlil Girsu and then Harpour, they actually don't get to do too much here, thankfully. They're going to turn Chessy Cat into Lingaribo and then pass back over to me. So all I really have to deal with at this point is whatever cards my opponent drew off the Chessy Cat, whatever happens to be plays there. Gonna go pitch Harpour for battle. They're gonna use Druid Swarm on the Galatea Eye, which is totally fine with me. I don't care about that at all, so I guess they didn't want me to get access to like World Crown question mark, but again, that would have been completely fine here. This Druid Swarm might end up being an issue, so I'm actually going to face it head on here. I'm going to summon back Engraver and just use the Engraver effect on the Druid Swarm. That looks really weird, but like, again, I just wanted my plays to not get interrupted by it. Plus, I have a specific thing I want to do here. I want to normal summon Girsu and then overlay into King of the Feral Imps. Yeah! This is another reason why I like playing both Fiendsmith and Mitsu in the Orcust deck. Because even if both of your engines are exhausted, right, and you're in a grind game where you're kind of running out of things to do, you can just focus into whichever engine you haven't done yet. So we can just go into King of the Feral Imps and, like I said, pivot straight into our Mitsurugi engine. And this will be a very easy way to get to lethal here. I think we could have probably found lethal, or at least, you know, set ourselves up really nicely with just the Fiendsmith and Orcust stuff that we had, but again, having the option to pivot into Mitsurugi like this is so, so nice. Yeah, as they realize I'm about to summon Murakumo and board wipe them, my opponent's just going to go ahead and concede here. Alright, I have one more duel before we take a look at the deck list, so let's take a look at this one last game. And our final duel is going to be a mirror match, not a direct mirror. They're on Millennium Fiendsmith Orcust as opposed to me on, again, Mitsurugi Fiendsmith Orcust, but alright, we opened only Mitsurugi stuff here. I'm going to go draw phase Prayers, tribute the Habakiri in hand. They get to chain Ash Blossom against the Prayers, which is unfortunate, but at the very least I can still add off the Habakiri. But the problem with that, actually, though, is the fact that I can't add a Habakiri. So I'm going to have to add Aramasa and then normal summon. Looks like they have a Maxi here as well, so what I decided to do was, rather than go for Aramasa, I decided to just add Prayers, set it, and then pass. That way I can still activate Prayers later on my opponent's turn if needed. I could tribute the Kusanagi in my hand, special summon it in defense mode, get a search, and then also use Kusanagi to wheel the Prayers back into my hand. Right, they're going to go for the Girsu token summons. We're going to go for the Maxi. They're going to chain Droll Mockbird. So I'm going to chain Mitsurugi Prayers here. Definitely got to do this now, of course. Adding Habakiri for the follow-up turn. Summoning back Kusanagi. Droll Mockbird resolves. And then, like I said, Kusanagi can just wheel the Prayers back into my hand for next turn as well. Alright, they're going to link off their token for Galatea Eye. then link Galatea I plus Girsu into Nightmare Phoenix. A little interesting that they chose to pivot like this, given they already have access to Harpour in the graveyard. They're choosing to go into the Nightmare line anyway, setting up the Orcust and Nightmare in the yard to then go into Moon of the Closed Heaven. And at this point, I realized exactly why they did that, because now they have Harpour and Orcust Nightmare set up in the graveyard, so they have like pretty much everything they need to full Orcust combo already in the yard. And now they can go into their Caesar first in order to counter Nibiru, which is exactly what I have in my hand. So very, very well played on my opponent's part here. And I wanted to showcase this duel to really showcase the strength of playing all these engines together, even if it wasn't from me, right? You know, it's really easy to look at on paper. You would think Mitsurugi Orcust would be stronger than Fiendsmith because the Mitsurugi cards have such, you know, powerful and flashy effects, especially Murakumo, right? But really, Fiendsmith's ability to provide so many levels of insurance is so valuable to a deck like Orcust, and the fact that it all plays through the Droll and Lockbird as well. I honestly think that that's the reason why Orcust is probably just the best deck in this format. It's not just the power level. Like, if you compare Orcust to something like Ryzeal, I feel like Ryzeal is honestly a bit more powerful. But the thing is, Orcust is so much better at pushing through hand traps, and moreover, Orcust, the Fiendsmith variant in particular, is basically straight up immune to Droll and Lockbird. Immune to Droll, can you believe it? And then, as my opponent did here, if you play your cards right, you are also immune to Nibiru. So being able to be immune to two of the most devastating hand traps in the meta, while still maintaining as powerful an end board as Orcust has, again, very easy to see why it is one of the better decks in the meta. And sure enough, my opponent has a simple lethal here. GG's, GG's. Alright, now that we've seen the gameplay, let's go ahead and take a look at the deck list. Okay, here is my list for Mitsurugi Fiendsmith Orcust. Like I said, I fit it into 42 cards, all the engines here. And I do like being a little bit above 40, because we have so many things we're not necessarily trying to open, like the Kusanagi, like the World Wand, you know, various things like that. The Ritual, stuff we're going to search, right? The Crescendo, all that kind of stuff. Now, in order to make room for all this engine and still stay as close to 40 as I did, I had to cut a few hand traps. So, normally I like playing at least a dozen hand traps in any given deck. This build, we're actually only on 10. We got the 2 Drolls, 2 Maxi. Oh no, it is 11, sorry, yeah, because 2 Drolls, 2 Maxi, 3 Ash, 3 Fua, 1 Nibiru. So it's 11. So it's a little bit less than I would like to play. But the thing is, this deck plays so well going second because of all of its engines. I know I didn't get to show any going second games here. I really did want to, but I didn't have enough time to get the quality gameplay there. But we do still have a lot of push going second, and we'll also play Triple Tack, which is not only a good board breaking card for going second, but of course is also a really good anti-hand trap card as well, or a hand trap counter. You know what I mean. Extra deck is honestly fairly wide open, even factoring in all the engines that we've got. I mean, really, if you think about it, the Mitsurugi engine's only extra deck commitment is King of the Pharaoh Imps, as opposed to Millennium, which has Snake Eye Dune Dragon plus whatever rank 8 you're gonna summon, whether it's Zombie Vamp or your Photon monsters, your Galaxy cards. So yeah, the Mitsurugi actually has less of an extra deck commitment, and for that reason, I decided to try out a Bao Aku in my extra deck. It didn't really end up coming up, but it definitely seems like a really solid option if you're ending on like a random Fiendsmith monster and a bunch of like random bodies, right? Plus, it can summon back any light or dark monster. So in a grind game, that could be a Murakumo from earlier in the game, or it could be, you know, some amount of your Orcust monsters as well. Didn't come up for me in my very brief playtesting session, but I definitely want to keep testing this card in this deck. I think it has a lot of potential. And starters, oh my gosh, this deck has so many starters. We've got 1, 2, so 2 Harpour plus 3 Girsu. Oh, Luri is actually a starter. So that's 6, 7, 8, 10, 13, 14, 15, 18. We have 18 starters, 18 of them in a 42 card deck. Honestly, if you wanted to play more hand traps, I don't think you even have to cut anything. I think you could just add like 1 or 2 more hand traps and you would still be like one of the more consistent decks in the current metagame with that number of starters. So all in all, I think Orcust is really well positioned. Now, at the time I'm recording this, they haven't officially announced the next pack yet, so whatever cards come in that next pack, maybe that'll dethrone Orcust, but I think even if Orcust isn't the best deck in whatever meta comes up, it'll still be like a very, very solid tier 1 deck. It's just so strong right now. Alright, I think that's everything I have to say about the build, so thanks for watching, as always, super appreciate having you around. Let's go ahead and move now to our outro so we can thank our YouTube members and patrons. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.